Hey, welcome everyone to today's session. Um, Bringing people in, and I might be a little distracted as I continue to bring people in. Sorry about that at the first few minutes, um, but it's just the way it works here in Google Meets. So, we've got an exciting one for you. First off, thank you for being here. I always appreciate your time, especially in summertime when you could be doing something else like laying on the beach. I think it'll be probably a smaller, a bit cozier session than usual because a lot of people are doing exactly that, enjoying their vacations. But Christmas in July, it's not even almost a cliche, it's definitely a cliche. I think the advantage of having this conversation now is that I'll be on vacation too. When I come back in September, I'll have to build a webinar. We won't be able to talk about it till October and it'll be too late. So let's just do it now. Um, and I think it's good that people have time to think about these topics. As you can see from the subtitle here, I want to talk about three rather specific areas, um, which are demand gen feed campaigns or feed-based demand gen, PMax exclusions, some new ones since this time last year, and promo mode. What all these things have in common is that, well, they're yeah, feed-based demand gen has been around for a bit longer, but all these things are they've made improvements and there are things that are different about them this year because I do not want to do a Q4 webinar where we talk about the stuff that we could have talked about last year or where we talk about stuff that's not possible yet, like all the fancy AI stuff that we'll probably be talking about next year. I want to talk about things that are new and interesting this year, for my sake, for your sake, so that we just focus on what matters. A few words about myself. I'll keep it brief. My name is Mike. I bet many of you have joined my webinars before. Thanks for coming in. And to people who are new, welcome. I have a background in retail and e-commerce. At this point, I've been working in e-commerce and advertising for about 10 years. And I'm just trying to pay attention. That's really all I do. I try to keep up to date on all these platform changes, the technology changes, and help translate that stuff toward you. I am not a day-to-day in the accounts manager anymore. First and foremost, I'm an analyst, and I try to understand the technology. I work with lots of clients and client teams, but I'm going to be trying to bring this in at a higher level and explain some stuff to you. Very flattered to be in conversation with a lot of journalists about stuff that's going on in these platforms. This is something that simply didn't happen a few years ago, but I think that there's more attention on these platforms and the fact that they're super important and they matter an awful lot. So that's something I really enjoy doing. And also, I'm just like a face of our company. We have over 100 people working here, really smart people, passionate people, hardworking people, and all of our lovely clients that we work with. So it's very humbling. I'm just one stone in like a pyramid of great people that we have on board at Smarter E-commerce. So that said, here's the agenda. Black Friday again already. We're going to talk about Black Friday last year a little bit, what I saw, and some of the problems with Black Friday to help understand why it could be important to do Black Friday differently this year. And then, as I mentioned, oops, I pasted in my wrong. Great, we're on slide 2, and I have my first big mistake. You'll see the agenda as we go, and I'll fix that when I send you the PDF. So, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the Turkey 5, we call it in the US. Black Friday month, it's increasingly known as. Must we really do this? Because it kind of sucks. I'm going to be straightforward with you. It's not all positive. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about why it is like that, if you don't already know. Because I think economists would look at Black Friday and say, this is not the best idea that anyone ever had. But first, I like to give a little bit of a motivational slide. This is a slide I've presented in years past because it's always true. It always happens like this again every year. Black Friday is simply different than everything else. There's nothing else quite comparable to it. And what you see here in the blue or purplish, I'm a little colorblind, the blue or purplish bar there is Black Friday compared to every other Friday of the year. And with the exception of CTR, oddly enough, it just stands out. It sticks out like a sore thumb from every other Friday in the year. And that is why we're so obsessed with this one Friday. It's why we're talking about this one November Friday now in July, because it is and always will be a very special day in e-commerce. Some beautiful things to see there, things I love, like what happens with conversions and your conversion rate. This is a sign that there is demand, a lot of demand in this day. CPC is not so positive. We'll take a closer look in that in a second. um, but it is just a very interesting and important day. So I guess you already know that. Let's talk about how Black Friday looked in 2025. Um, There on the bright side, like, so what we see again with these blue or purple bars is the volumes, the volume of impressions, clicks, orders, revenue, spend. It was all up year over year. Unfortunately, spend was up the most. It was up like by a third last year compared to the year prior. And but orders and revenue were also up a pretty healthy margin, but we also have the rates at the top of these bars. And so something that's not so nice is CPC was up 23% year over year. And the spend was up. So people were spending more in absolute terms, and they were also spending more at the unit economic level with the cost per click. Um, on the plus side, as I've said, value per click, that's the flip side of the coin. Also usually does pretty well on Black Friday, but it is an expensive holiday, and this is where the problem starts. Um, let's zoom out and look at CPCs over time. So the gray bars all together here are every month since 2020. And similar to what we showed you a couple slides ago with those special Fridays, I'm highlighting the Novembers because November is just different every year. And here we're looking at Performance Max and shopping cost per click. And you can see that clicks heads and shoulders are more expensive in November. It is what it is. Uh, there is a lot of competition for the demand that exists. So, as I mentioned, economists are not always happy with the idea of Black Friday. I can't quite blame them. It's kind of, we have trained consumers to wait for this feeding frenzy of high competition, high discounts, high promotions, and that is not necessarily positive for businesses. The question becomes, did we generate demand that wouldn't have existed through all this promotional activity? Or did we just take a whole season or a big percentage of a season's worth of demand and squish it into 24 hours or a weekend or whatever at the expense of our businesses? So Black Friday, in my experience, and Q4 in general, is make or break for a lot of businesses. It's where they finally figure out how their year is ultimately going to look. But as I just mentioned, that competition, those CPCs, the promotions, it all adds up, and it does unfortunately have a price. Here we can see the erosion of margin over the month of November last year. It, starting around 35%, I would say a average to maybe above average. That's a respectable e-commerce gross margin, I would say, 30 to 35%. Nothing wrong there. Um, but then as soon as you get to toward the end of the month and the discounting begins and people start to act on those discounts and actually make their purchases, the gross profit margin begins to erode. And so this is kind of the economic dilemma that I'm griping about here. And I don't think that we can not participate in Black Friday. I know some advertisers who do. They try They try not to let Black Friday own them or own their year or their quarter, but for most of us, it's a luxury we can't afford. Everyone else is doing it, and therefore we must do it as well. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is making some of these campaigns work harder for you, overcoming a couple of dilemmas, and a new bidding technology from Google, which we can evaluate together. By the way, I should mention that the Q&A is, hold on, let me make sure the Q&A is activated if I have to do something there. Hold on. Yes, okay, there's already a question in there. Diego, thank you. By the way, I got a connection request today from Diego from someone named Diego Max, and I thought, well, that's what will happen if he ever works for Google. He'll have to change his last name. So moving on. By the way, how do I know about this profit data? Because there are some people who are putting their profit in ads, and you too can do this. You can do this by submitting your cost of goods sold attribute in your Merchant Center feed. And this will allow you to also understand the profitability of your advertising. There are, of course, other ways of doing this through server-side tracking and stuff like this. This is a very simple, straightforward way to do it. So think about it. One more thing before we move on from Black Friday altogether, or into what you can do about it. I just want to mention this was the last of the recap content. This is what we saw with competition in Google Ads last Black Friday. We saw that there were 12% more unique competitors compared to the baseline. And it's hard to say whether or not these businesses genuinely weren't advertising before the holiday, or if they just started spending enough more that they started popping up in Auction Insights. But we did see 12% more account level competitors in Black Friday. And Amazon is utterly, utterly dominant there. Last year, Temu, for the second year in a row, they kind of actually chilled out during the peak season. And they'll definitely be doing that again this year because there are some new tariffs in place here in Europe. Since last year, there are tariffs in place in the US, and this breaks a lot of the business models of Shein, Temu, and many of these other Chinese marketplaces who have been pretty aggressive over here. So that's one plus for this season, is we should expect less competition and more room for the rest of us in that regard. So this is actually the shortest section. I've tried to put a bunch of information in one slide, and I hope that's okay with you. Make PMax less lazy. I said that I want to talk about some things that are new this year, new-ish to very new this year, and slowly but surely we start to see an array of features building up for PMax, which can be mixed and matched, and some of them are not entirely unique to PMax, but they also apply to PMax. And I want to talk about those. So as I said, I've put them all. I've got an overview here, and then I've got a couple other kind of food for thoughts slides for you. But this is the toolkit that we can work with here, because I was just complaining that it's unproven if Black Friday generates any real boost in demand or if there's just a feeding frenzy. We're talking here about an incrementality problem. So one of the things that you can do with increasing ease in Google Ads, including PMax, is to force the incrementality issue through a variety of controls. So I just want to highlight a few of the things you can do here. First off, there's kind of this increasingly large layer of options that you can apply to your Google Smart Bidding. There's new customer value and high value new customer mode. This is a way of signaling to the algorithm that you want to spend more on certain customers, namely new customers. So what you do there is you tell Google that a new customer is worth, for example, 25% more to you. And ultimately, this will mean that the conversion value of those customers is going to have a 25% multiplier on it, put simply. Um, and the end result of that is that Google, when they're doing their bidding, they can set a bid that is 25% higher because the expected order value is 25% higher. So this is a way that allows Google to bid more aggressively for new customers, just to explain that. Next up is new customer only mode. This is a way where you, rather than telling Google, I want you to bid for everyone, but new customers are worth more to me, and you should bid more aggressively for them, you tell Google that you only want them to bring new customers in. And by the way these work is by Google has some automated detection features for new versus returning customers, but you can also supply them with your customer list. This is one of the ways that this will work. It's better if you use both of those things together. And it's not perfect, by the way. It will be leaky. You will see that there's going to be some existing customers anyway, but it's a big improvement over the way it works out of the box. Google has also added a new mode called New Prospects, which is quite interesting too. The difference here between how does Google define a prospect versus the customer, these are people who not only are not website visitors of you or purchasers of yours, but they're people who are not brand aware of you at all. So they should really be net new to your brand, and that's high incrementality. So I think in terms of whether or not that's the right fit for you, this is going to depend a lot on how important your brand is for you. Like, we work with a lot of multi-brand retailers. Some of them have very big own brands, and also, they might have a family of proprietary brands, and this stuff matters. Some of them don't care about that, and they're focused more on the vendor brands, the manufacturers that they're selling. But if you are a mono brand or a direct-to-consumer brand, this could be a really interesting one for you. Then additionally, there's re-engagement and high-value re-engagement. And this is about helping bring back lapsed customers and things like that, which is also a very interesting proposition in Black Friday. These are people who might have shopped with you last year or earlier this season, and you want to make sure that they come back to you again to bring home the year strong. These have been evolving over time, and some of these were not available last year. New prospects, actually, I should probably put a beta flag on that. That was announced at Google Marketing Live, and I believe it's still in beta. Exclusions, this is also something like that for PMax did not exist last year. So this is new in the context of PMax. This is basically your remarketing, and Google doesn't like the term remarketing anymore. They call it your data. So they talk about your data exclusions. But that can be supplied in a number of different ways here. But this is another way, rather than switching to one of these bidding modes, you can alternately supply a list of people that you don't want to target, and work with it that way with Google. I also want to mention demographics, and I'm going to show you more about this in just a second. This could be really important for you in terms of which promotions you want to offer, or how you want to target people, making sure that your messaging is landing correctly. And we'll look at that in more detail in a second. I also include device here. This is stuff that was in beta maybe this time last year or didn't exist yet. So I really want to invite you to remember, hey, there are these new things this year that makes advertising with PMax and peak season different than last year. And some of these have probably been out for a bit longer in the US, but for us in Europe, they are newer, including first order promotions and loyalty programs. So this will let you, for example, show a special offer to someone who hasn't bought from you before, or offer member pricing or things like that to make sure that people come back to your brand at the holiday time and not to someone else's. So again, I just invite you to think in terms of a mix and match logic here. It will also depend on your conversion volume and stuff like that, how you can realistically bring this to life. But these are actually quite a broad array of tactics that are potentially overlooked, and some of them are just new this year. So I think it's really important because, as I said, this picture kind of sucks watching your margin erode. Like it's fine if your margin is eroding and you're doing good, hard, incremental marketing. It's not fine if your margin is eroding and PMax is just leaning on purely on remarketing, like it loves to do, or leaning on brand traffic or stuff like this. So, in exchange for that profit sacrifice that you're making, you should ask more. And these are the levers that you have to do it. It is possible now to make PMax less lazy. I also want to call out seasonality adjustments and promo mode, but we'll be talking about that later. So, mini case study. This is a health and beauty retailer from the US, and this is perhaps an excessively complicated way of looking at this, but I want to show you that not all segments are created equally, and nowadays you can do something about it. So, what I've done here is created a simple scoring model. It just looks at the balance of volume and efficiency for each of these segments, like every age bracket, by device, by gender combination. And you can see here in green, the higher scoring ones, this is their core demographic, um, which is probably not too surprising, that they basically have females age more or less age 25 and up is in their core demographic. Um, so, the questions arise. Is there something they could do to target the younger ones? Maybe it's because those young people and their gleaming, healthy skin. God damn it. um, they don't have any of those crow's feet or anything else. The gray hairs, let's not talk about it. But yeah, is there something they could do on their offer? Is there something they could do on their messaging? Is it okay that they're missing that demographic? This is a question that also emerges. Like, do they know that that's a problem, or should they change something there? But they also have a core demographic of men, and men are typically most performant on computer. So there's already an important differentiator here. There's a similar age heuristic toward male shoppers, but men, for whatever reason, are more shopping on their computers than women are. Women are maybe browsing on mobile, using some more discovery-based formats or whatever too. Maybe, hate to make like a cliche here, but there could be a guy purchasing a gift for his wife on a work laptop or whatever the case might be. And my favorite thing here of all this though is this super weird thing that happens, because we see that, like, when the age is unknown, that's the worst performing segment. And when the gender is unknown, that's also the worst performing segment. But when both the age and the gender are unknown, there's this strange, like, hotspot of actually really solid performance. So, while unknown is kind of this anti-signal, you can't be fearful of the traffic where it's unknown. That's probably their core demographic who just has certain privacy settings in place, or it might have to do with their device settings, whatever the case might be. But it doesn't mean that that's bad traffic just because it's unknown. So these are the kind of things that you can highlight when you really dig into your audience data. And as I mentioned, all these things are now possible. Like, there's not age targeting, but there's age exclusions, gender exclusions, income exclusions coming soon, device. So what you can do is sculpt your way. If you exclude um, everyone except for a certain age group, or like, you have made then an age targeted campaign. You can do these old fashioned, maybe sculpting approaches, and there could be value in that. Sorry, just make sure no one joined. Okay, no more joiners right now. Good. Similarly, I want to invite you to look at your promotions last year. Okay, we talked about how promotions drive a loss of margin. but they also drive these other things that we like conversion rate and stuff like that. So, just as a reminder, you can go in your merchant center from last year, take that promotion data and hold it up to your impression share, hold it up against your auction insights metrics, hold it up against audience drill downs and things like that. Find out, did my promotions work for me? There's still time now to optimize it because we're talking about this in July, thank God. So really, I invite you to go and look back for that. Check the correlations, see what's there. All right, beat the October blues. Next section. Sorry about my broken agenda slide at the start. Um, the October blues, what are they? This is how I visualize this. Basically, what we're looking at here, this chart might look a little weird at first, but um, yeah, good. I have a cleaned up version. Let's go to the cleaned up version first. All right. This is the percentage of your revenue where the conversion is happening the same day as the click. So there's no conversion lag. And you can see that 8 weeks out from Black Friday, 2 months out from Black Friday, that's 85%, for example. This is actually based on a large group of data. Your data will vary, but I'm typically seeing 85%. And then suddenly, 4 weeks out, that has plummeted down below, like, to about 77% or so. It's dropped almost 10%. And there's this dip that persists here basically until Black Friday comes. um, so this is what I'm referring to. It's the October blues, actually probably best called the November blues. And when you look at this, if you're doing year over year comparisons, for example, those weeks are going to look like crap. You have to make sure you're using your buy conversion time metrics in order to straighten that out. You might think my ROAS is so bad right now, or like, what's going on? My volume is down. But it doesn't mean that your campaign isn't working. It means your campaign is not working yet. You're waiting for those conversions to come home to you. And of course, in the post Black Friday period, we see that this pendulum swings the other way. And the percentage of your same day conversions climbs and climbs as you get closer to the Christmas cutoff dates. And there's no rocket science there. This is natural human psychology. The urgency rises. People need to purchase. They spend less time considering, or and they click the ad and they buy just the way we like them to. All right. But let's go back to the slightly more complicated version because we can look at these other layers that come in here. Like, the flip side of that is that this light purple area up here um, goes from like goes up to 15% of your revenue 4 weeks out because people are waiting for 4 weeks, right? So that's really important right there. And again, that's why if you're doing direct year over year or a period over period comparisons, you have to be really careful because the performance is going to look bad, but it will look good again. The other thing that you can do, oops, I'll bring some people in. The other thing that you can do here is you can run demand gen alongside it. That is what demand gen was built for. You know, as I wrote here, know when to load your funnel. You can run this analysis for yourself using your Google Ads report editor, or ask me if you want some help, and it will give you an idea, but it's going to look roughly like this. That's when you need to load your funnel. So that's exactly the right time to run demand gen campaigns. Now, before I get into what's good about demand gen, I first want to mention, I was just talking about PMax. A lot of people in here using PMax. And to me, the elephant in the room is that demand gen and PMax are starting to look more and more like each other. I've presented this material before, so if you've been in more of my webinars, please excuse me. If you're new here, welcome. But it's worth repeating. At this point, demand gen covers all of the same networks as PMax covers, except for search networks, so search and shopping. But demand gen is everywhere else. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's a good idea to put a feed in demand gen. But this is complicated because right now, if you have a PMax and demand gen in parallel, they are going to overlap on the asset part of PMax. If you've added a feed in, they're going to overlap on the asset and the feed part of PMax, except for basically the shopping stuff. But everything that's kind of not search and shopping, they'll overlap on. And demand gen, this is in general a good thing, or it is what it is. Google has heard that people want demand gen to be more performance oriented, so they are increasingly bringing it toward more performance, toward ROAS and stuff like that. They're pushing it in that direction. Um, but that's what PMax is good at. PMax does that stuff. It does the bottom funnel. Demand gen was always about the mid funnel. So they're covering, like, we're arriving at a place where there's a high degree of network overlap between the two. There's potentially a funnel overlap, and there can also be this feed overlap. And so this can become a bit problematic. I have a whole thing. I'm not going to walk through this right now, but it's a flow chart of exactly what I've just described. And you can look at it in your leisure later on. All right. But it asks these questions. Are you targeting uh, products? Are you optimizing for consideration or conversion? Are you targeting the same products as each other, et cetera? And it's a little conflict map. But the reason that I want to mention this right now is that, in my opinion, especially in the context of the October blues here that we're talking about, you should let demand gen be demand gen. I would, what the name of it is called, I would let it be more consideration and reach oriented. Your goal here is to bridge this hole and to fill it up. You know, you want to make people aware of your offer. You want to educate and inform them about your discounts. You want to remind them that you exist. You want to hit them again with products that they've been looking at. Yes, that's remarketing. Screw it. It's good. You need remarketing at this time of year to make sure that when this critical moment lands, they come back home to you. And here is again another mini case study. This is an example that I love, where you can see the impact of adding a feed and meeting with holiday demand, seasonal demand. So it's not a Black Friday case study. Sorry about that, but it's about Mother's Day in Latin America, and they are such good kids in Latin America. They love their moms and they take good care of them on Mother's Day. So here we can see what happened with conversions when a feed was added and it was combined with the right seasonal messaging. There was an extremely modest amount of conversions, and frankly, the amount of conversions in here is still modest, but for this advertiser, it's a start, and it showed that they could dramatically change what a demand gen campaign does for them. But again, I I don't think that there's a huge conversion lag and everyone waiting for Mother's Day to buy. I mean, maybe there's something. So I want to tell you that demand gen can be conversion oriented. Feeds can support that, but it's also about the classic mid funnel that demand gen was built for. One other thing I want to say about demand gen and feeds specifically, this is very cool. You might have seen this notification in your Google Ads user interface, and for some people, they'll actually be seeing the real data. Products reports are going to start working for demand gen and PMax, and this will include network, but more to the point here, it will include product data from all your campaign types. So previously, demand gen was omitted from there, which was first off super weird from an overall transparency and reporting perspective. But now it also makes it way more like tactical and actionable what you can do with your demand gen, because you can learn more about what's going on. You can do things. You can look at your data by brand if you're a multi-brand retailer. You can look at it by product type. You can look at it by, you can use, I won't say all, I'm still seeing this rolling out, but you can do really detailed product level and product attribute level reporting for demand gen, so you can learn about, okay, great, I can have my merchant center connected to demand gen. What happens next? This will show you that. The other thing that you can do is segment by ad type, which you'll see that there's a demand gen product ad is a type. Um, that's also going to help you get some visibility into what's going on with your merchant center connected demand gen account or demand gen campaign. Something else that I want to call out that is new this year. So what you're looking at is a chart from last year, but give me a second here. Something very interesting happened last year that Google did not talk about a lot, actually. They started building connected TV ads directly from the product feed. And so you can see the impact of that on the blue line. Here's demand gen. You can see a dramatic amount and the average amount of TV impressions per advertiser. And I haven't looked at this since, but it scaled up massively when they did this in Q2 last year. It was this whisper launch. um, so great. Ads started showing on TV last year. I told you there's something new here, and it's the shoppable TV format. So basically, you're you could already be getting these ads and you don't even know about it. Um, every advertiser who's using PMax or Demand Gen with a merchant center feed connected to it, they're automatically eligible to be on TV. Um, and Google will automatically generate QR codes for them so that someone who's watching YouTube on their TV and also scrolling on their phone, as many people do, they're probably watching a long form YouTube video on their TV and swiping shorts at the same time on their phone. They can see a product ad, hold up their camera to scan the QR code, and they can then immediately shop that product from the TV on their phone. So that's something very cool that is new this year. And it's another reason why it could be smart to add a feed to your demand gen campaigns. Couple of best practices on the feed side. There are many demand gen best practices. Not going to get into all of them. Also, as I told you, I'm not a day to day. There's going to be better people with creative strategy or stuff like that. Okay, but I'm on the nerdy side. Here's some nerdy stuff. You want to make sure that you include short title in your feed when you're running demand gen. This is something you probably want to do anyway for PMax, but the idea of short title is that it's short. Your product title, you're encouraged to use all your characters. You're encouraged to write these very long titles, which Google can use to help match your products to search terms. Your short title is really a marketing asset. It's a piece of ad copy, basically. It should be much shorter. It should be part of an overall eye-catching or thumb-stopping ad. And one more thing that's important is that if you have size variants, gender variants, anything like that, you do not want to express that in the short title, because what Google could end up doing, what they're almost certainly going to do, is show a carousel of products or some kind of swipeable format of products or collage of formats of products. And if you have a title that is too product specific, it might not match one of the products in the ad set. In general, Google wants you to have like 40 to 50 products, 4 to 50 products in a product group in demand gen. It really needs at least 4 because of these carousel formats. So 4 is the absolute minimum, but you want to have more to make sure you're eligible for as many placements as possible. Video link. This is quite new. Video link allows you to what it sounds like. You can have links to videos in your feed, up to 10 of them. And this will let even a feed-based PMax campaign, for example, or your demand gen, you don't need to worry about video assets per se. You can put a link in your feed and it will pull from there. So this is a really nice way to scale up if you have these things available. And lastly, item group ID. This is technical, administrative, but it's important. This is when you have product variants, this is increasingly required depending on your market and the ad type and stuff like that. But it's highly recommended in demand gen because, again, they're going to be showing multiple products together. And there's the risk that they could end up showing the same image asset more than once or stuff like that. This helps you build groups, which helps prevent these kind of problems. Promo. Oh my God, the time's flying. Promo mode. I thought I was going to have too little content today. Promo mode. Let's go through it quick. What is promo mode? First, we have to talk about what is smart bidding exploration, also known as SBE. So I'm sorry, I enjoyed myself a little too much on this part of the deck. I got into my usual nerdy stuff. Please excuse me. I'll keep it short. Okay. So to understand what promo mode is, we have to understand what smart bidding exploration is. And to understand that, we have to understand exploration versus exploitation. This is what every bidding model is doing. This is what Google Smart Bidding does. Okay. They have search terms, audiences, products that represent to them sure bets, safe bets. There's a lot of proven history behind these things. They know it's going to work. Okay. Um, but if they only advertise to those search terms or to those audiences or users or et cetera, the revenue opportunity is going to diminish over time or as you spend more money or however. So what they need to do is balance this with something called exploration. They can not only exploit, they have to explore too. They have to look at things where they're not so sure. And this is why Google is very focused about hitting your average return on ad spend. Um, and yeah, these risky bets, this is ultimately where revenue upside exists. This is where growth opportunities exist. And this becomes increasingly relevant because let's look at search terms, for example. We know that people are having these more conversational experiences with Google search. It's not a search bar anymore, it's a search box. People are typing more like prompt type queries in there, very long queries. Now, Google talks about how amazing an opportunity that is. It's true. There's a lot of intent and a lot of detail that's available in there, but it is also a big challenge because they don't have historical data for those queries. And advertisers are not targeting them with keywords. So that's why they're talking about things like broadening your targeting with AI Max on the one hand, and they're also talking about smart bidding exploration, which gives them license to take more risky bets. Um, I'm just going to skip this in the interest of time, but this is a data science problem. This is what they have to do. It doesn't matter. Let's skip it. So, smart bidding exploration, you are giving Google permission to miss your target anywhere from 5 to 30%. And this is intended as an always on setting, basically 6 months or longer, um, but effectively always on, where you're telling Google, yes, I want you to stop focusing on the safe bets as much. And you have my permission to look at risky search terms, look at risky, etc., especially search terms. They talk about increasing your traffic diversity or your query diversity. That's what the effect of this will be. So they're still going to optimize for the same baseline ROAS target, but they'll also mix in more exploration, which will have revenue upside, but it will also cause your performance to suffer. And they need your permission to do it. All right. So, what is promo mode and why was I talking about smart bidding exploration? Promo mode is powered by smart bidding exploration. That's why you have to understand it. Now, instead of by the way, I'm not a huge fan of smart bidding exploration. I'm still learning about it. Jury's out. But promo mode makes a lot of sense to me because instead of an always on setting, you schedule this mode to activate for anywhere from 3 days to 14 days. This might change, but what I've seen in the beta is that there's an even broader missy range you're allowed. You can tell it's allowed to miss your roast by up to 90%, which is an awful lot. Um, and you can layer on more budget so that it has the headroom available to do this as well. So that is the basic idea: is that it will have you'll have the same core ROAS target, but it's also going to have permission to take risky bets in pursuit of more revenue during a promo period. So the question that probably comes up the most right now is, wait, Google already has seasonality adjustments. Do they really need smart bidding exploration or promo mode as well? So just to explain a couple of difference, like first off, how does this differ from just giving them a lower ROAS target? If you just give a lower ROAS target, it's going to have a lower baseline and it's going to pursue that baseline with high confidence. It will not do more exploration. It will do more exploit. It will do the same amount of exploitation and exploration around a lower target, if that makes sense. I hope. If you use smart bidding exploration, it's going to stay on your baseline, but it's going to branch out more. So it will increase traffic diversity. Lowering your ROAS target will not increase traffic diversity. And when we get to seasonality adjustments specifically, this is a little complicated slide. I'm sorry. I try to keep it simple though. The auction works basically like this. Every time it's bidding, Google's not predicting what is the right bid to set. They're predicting how much will this click be worth. And so they basically predict the conversion rate and they predict the order value. And those two things make a value per click adjustment. And then if we look at the area below here, they can then set a bid that is proportionate to that predicted value per click based on what ROAS you're asking for. So when we look at seasonality adjustments, you're telling Google, I'm running promos or there's a change in demand and I expect my conversion rate to increase. And Google is then going to expect a higher value per click. And that means that they can bid higher to reach that. So it's going to increase the bidding aggression. Got it? So you're telling Google there's going to be higher conversion rate. You should increase your bidding aggression. In promo mode, you're telling them that I'm not going to be as picky about this ratio between the value per click. You're not saying anything about your value per click that something's changing. You're not giving them any information about that. You're telling them that they are allowed to mess up this ratio by a certain amount. And that's going to increase the amount. So I would view this as heavily oriented toward catching more impressions, more search terms, and this as bidding aggression. And that is the core difference between these two tactics. Okay. I'm stopping it there because I want to get to questions and answers. So let's do that. We have 12 minutes left. Good. Oh, by the way, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Again, if you need help with any of these topics, reach out to me or our company, and we'd be happy to help you. There's enough time. There's enough time till Black Friday. We can work on some stuff together. Let's do it. So, okay. Biggest tip for this Q4 2026 versus 2025? Oh, my single biggest tip. Yeah, I would say it would probably be about that tactics slide that I showed you about PMax. And by the way, a lot of that applies to standard shopping as well. It's not just PMax stuff, but think about what is the smartest way you can mix and match your tactics to focus on incrementality because or rather, I think you should do both things. I think you should have campaigns where you're focused on incrementality and new customers. And you should also have campaigns where you're making sure that you're bringing people back home to you. Because the problem is with smart bidding adoption being as high as it is, smart bidding works really well. Google's really good at predicting that this is going to be a high value user, search term, etc. And everyone has that same superpower. So if you are not there bidding high for your returning customers, someone else is going to. And so that's why I don't think it's a bad thing to also focus on remarketing, but have those streams separated and optimize for them. Will the slides and recording be shared? Yes, indeed. Which KPI is shown in the overview about the health and beauty case study? That's a custom metric that I invented. It doesn't have a name. It is a score that looks at the balance of volume and efficiency. So you might be familiar with these scoring models, like there'll be a 4-box model and there's like your cost sinks, and then there's your kind of unsung product, or like could be great products and then your strong products. It's something like that. I've created a score that looks at the balance of like revenue and ROAS basically. So for promo mode, do you need to implement more budget for it to work properly, or can you keep your spend consistent? Um, that is optional. You can optionally activate additional budget, um, and this will help your ability to scale with demand in principle. Of course, Google nowadays is very insistent on making sure you're not limited by budget. There are changes going into effect this summer on August 17th that will have an impact on that as well. Um, but you must not be limited by budget. You don't have to add budget, but you might want to. And you can use a flight or a daily budget, and they still will not exceed 2 times your daily budget. It behaves consistently to what we know. If your focus for Q4 is driving new customers, would you recommend promo mode as opposed to seasonality adjustments? Well, that's a great question. And tentatively, I would say yes. I don't know the answer yet because this is our first season with promo mode. It's not even, I'm sticking my neck out here. It's not officially general availability yet, but I strongly assume that if Google announces something called promo mode in spring, they're going to want it available by Q4. Um, but yeah, I think that probably is a better way. Yes, but again, you can think about how these tactics interact with what else you're doing. You can also create a campaign that is focused on new customers and add seasonality adjustments to that. Would you recommend avoiding the new promo mode? This hold on, let me sort by popular first. Um, can you use both promo mode and seasonality adjustments together? You can. The question is if should you, which I'm not sure about, and I don't know the honest answer yet. But my understanding is that this would then cause you to bid more aggressively, um, and it would cause Google to be more relaxed about your ROAS target. And so you have to understand that these two things are multiplicative. Same goes, you can have if you have smart bidding exploration active on a campaign, and you activate seasonal promo mode on that, these things will multiply against each other, and that can be potentially dangerous. So I would not use those two at the same time, but you might. It's something that I think we're all going to have to test and learn this year. Is it still the case that exact match keywords are given priority in search campaigns especially when PMax is running in parallel? um, yeah, well, so when the search term is identical to your keyword, it will be given priority. So it's just the special other thing that we call that's like identical match that, yeah. So, but otherwise it's going to be solved by ad rank. But if the search term is identical to the keyword, that will take priority. Um, would you recommend avoiding the new promo mode this Black Friday and waiting for a smaller, less impactful sale to test it? Well, that's reasonable as well. As I said, it's new, it's a bit unproven. Um, I guess I don't want to endorse promo mode yet because I don't know. I just don't know yet. But I do want to say that I like the way that it is structured as a feature more than smart bidding exploration, and I think it makes sense. Um, however, yeah, I think there's going to be a learning curve this year, and you might want to scope that so that there's not a problem here. Um, you know, because it is a bit less understandable the impact, or you're going to have worse ROAS, and that's different than having higher bids potentially. So, um, do we normally see a big uplift in conversions from existing customers by activating PMax re-engagement mode? Well, feature is quite new, at least new to me. I don't know what the beta status was in the past. Um, so I can't I can't honestly answer that one yet from a lot of experience. But yeah, I don't. So I'm not sure yet. Something to test though. If there's anyone who does have experience with that. You can abuse the Q&A function and write an answer in there. Okay, I think we went through the questions. Very cool. There's a couple minutes left. You can sneak through a question if you have one last. I'm going to switch to newest first. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time, attention, the great questions. I hope this was helpful. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you after summer break. Hope everyone has a really nice summer. You'll probably see me again more in September. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Bye.